Welcome in, guys. It is Saturday night. It's been a long week. I'm doing something a little bit different this week. I ended up coming down. I still am a little bit under the weather. I believe I have something like COVID. I have the flu definitely, so I'm struggling with my congestion in my chest, and I apologize. We're gonna skip. So this is gonna be an abbreviated week. We're gonna change and shift gears on some things. We're going to take a new approach, kind of, sort of. We will continue to do a little bit of current events throughout weekly. Not this week. The major breaking news, as you all know, Charlie Kirk was assassinated, and our hearts and prayers and thoughts go out to him, his family, and his friends, and to anyone that was moved by him and believed in him. It's a big loss for our country and for me specifically. I'm a senior citizen, and yet I say when I grow up, I wish I could be like the 31-year-old Charlie Kirk. And in that line or thought of thinking, all I can say is thoughts and prayers to him and his wife, his two little girls, his family, his friends, and America has suffered a great loss. All right, that is the news for this week that everyone already knows. The offender has been caught. So I'll go right into my quote of the week. Is from Marcus Aurelius: to offend a strong man, tell him a lie. To offend a weak man, tell him the truth. Do your research on it, guys. It's a little bit of a deep quote, but I believe that we just came through the last 8 or 9 years of that being very applicable to our daily lives in our country. So there is that. I was going to touch on some news, but instead I am just going to get right into our sports of the week, our picks, and then, by the way, guys, congratulations to anyone that followed us. We did 2-1 against the spread last week, 2-1. We started with Cincinnati. I honestly believe that Joe Burrow, the coach, the whole offense, I get their defense is still lacking, although they did sign Hendrickson. What my belief was they wanted to get a faster start than they have the last couple of years, and they did. They ended up winning. They ended up pulling it out by 1 point, but they were giving more than one. So unfortunately, we missed on the Cincinnati cover, although we did go 3-0 straight up. We had Cincy, we had the Rams, and sorry, I'm blanking here. Let me get my notes. Yes, we had Cincy, we had the Rams, and we had Denver. And again, tight covers, but a win's a win and a loss is a loss. Let me start by saying, guys, that anyone online at an 800 number back in the day, before the internet started, all these wise guys, as they call themselves, anyone tells you that they have inside information, that they know something's going to happen before it happens, you guys are buying into a bridge and pot of gold, so to speak. What we try to do is we, again, listen to 20 or 30 hours of some of the best pundits out there. I'll give a shout out to Colin Cowherd and a few others. We monitor ESPN. We look at all the line moves. We look at the bets. We've been doing this for 50 years. As far as the sports book side of things, and what we do is you want to just take what is the most likely thing to happen, what is the common sense most likely thing to happen. And so with that, we're going to get started on this week. And this week we're going to kind of go through a bunch of the plays. I'm going to end up giving you we are not going to start this week because we've skipped the news, because we're shifting into giving away Pokemon and all of that. We're going to stick with the sports because of my under the weather. We're going to do an abbreviated video or podcast this week on just the picks because we need to keep up with those. Week 1, again, 2-1 against the spread, 3-0 straight up. And so let's get into it. We'll talk a little bit about some of the games and give you a little bit of background. So Cincy versus Jacksonville. Cincinnati Bengals at home against the Jacksonville Jaguars. Jacksonville looked amazing. Problem is they were playing Carolina, that everyone believes could be the bottom 3 or 4 teams in the league of the 32. So Jacksonville scored 20 points on their first 4 possessions, and then it kind of just went stagnant. They kind of went into ball control, prevent kind of thing. They didn't go for the jugular. They didn't run it up. That's a problem because that's how backdoor covers happen. So with Cincy and Jacksonville, they've played twice, one at home, one away. Both Bengals wins by 3. One was over the 50.5, one was under. But I believe in this game, if the Bengals want to make the playoffs, they will need to win their home opener. And if they're going to win, winning by 3 or 3.5 is more likely than not. It's not one of our picks, but it's just one that looks kind of decent on the, a lot of people are looking for multiple picks for parlays and whatnot. Again, we're going to start getting into paid or, the subscriber plus model down the road. We want to establish ourselves first, that you guys know how good we are, how consistent we are. And so we decided week 2, we're going to give it away again for free completely, especially with me feeling under the weather and everything. My son has not been able to set up yet the subscriber plus model and a couple of the other things. So we're going to go ahead and just cut it to sports this week and give you all the picks for free. Again, I will let you know the actual picks from us. I'm just touching on quite a few of the games so you guys get an idea of our logic and thinking. Buffalo at the Jets. Buffalo is one of our picks. I'll tell you this: the last 5 Bills have won 4-1, covering 3 of these by 8 or more. With Josh Allen at the helm and the way they won last week, for those of you who watched Sunday night, beating Baltimore with 4 minutes to go, down by 15 at home, there's no quit, and Josh Allen pulled out with Superman. He was Superman, and you'd have to lean towards the Bills and their defense. Although they're very thin, I believe that this coach will have this team ready to play. It is a divisional game, so the Buffalo Bills, and actually what's funny is the line has dropped. The line has come down to, if you look at ESPN, it's at 5.5, that's why at 7.5, I didn't like the line. I didn't like the number. But actually, a lot of people are taking the Jets. There is a sharp move to the Jets. Justin Fields and all that, the way he played. I disagree. I think the Buffalo Bills minus 5.5 at home is a must take. By the way, let me stop right there and say we did also almost 100% across the board on our little bit of fantasy advice that we did do. We touched on kickers. We told you to take Brandon Aubrey. We also mentioned Cam Little, but we told you Brandon Aubrey and Boswell from the Pittsburgh Steelers. The kicker from the Pittsburgh Steelers, the kicker from Dallas. We told you fantasy-wise they would score double digits, and if you could guarantee, we were talking about it, go watch last week's, if you could guarantee 10 or more by the kicker, what we had a hypothetical discussion or a theoretical discussion about what is that worth in terms of draft rank. Everybody takes their kicker and defense in the last 2 rounds. But I would argue I would move up just 1 round earlier than everyone else and take one of those 2 kickers with Pittsburgh or the Dallas kicker, and the defenses with Denver. Denver played outstanding defense last week. We did have 4 defenses we mentioned. The one that only scored 5 points was New England, but even still, New England with the 5 points on the defense was still a plus, and we nailed it. We also told you guys our Captain Obvious, Josh Allen, that was a Captain Obvious. Brock Bowers, that was a Captain Obvious. Saquon Barkley, we did have as our Captain Obvious, and although he didn't run it up, really none of the running backs really did, and so he did score pretty impressively in comparison to week 1, the fact that it is week 1 with all the other running backs. We had some of our long shots, or I guess my ride or die with Davante Adams. He didn't do anything spectacular, but he produced. and I'm still sticking with him as my ride or die. That being said, the Rams was a low-scoring game. Again, week one, a lot of intangibles, a lot of unknowns. So it's hard to really gauge a lot of things in week one, but we nailed most of everything we talked about. The tight ends we're very proud of. We called for the tight end in Indianapolis. We said that was Brock Bowers 2.0 all over again. How everybody did not draft Bowers last year coming out of Georgia as the number one tight end taken in the draft. This year with Tyler going to the Indianapolis Colts, we were again, same thing, bewildered. How is he not moved up higher? And sure enough, he had an outstanding weekend. We also touched on Kraft out of Green Bay, 2 solid weeks out of Kraft. So we just wanted to touch on a little bit of fantasy as well. This week, nothing really stands out as far as everything we touched on last week. Fantasy's pretty much, now you're going into week 2 already. A lot of guys, you're going to start all your high draft picks. You're going to sit all your maybes or your long shots until you kind of figure out some things. But the tight ends, we kind of solved a little bit of that for you guys, especially with Kittles being out injured. People might be looking for a tight end. And again, Denver utilizes their tight end a lot with Ingram. But Indianapolis, if you can still grab him. If not, everybody has grabbed it. Chicago, another tight end, the kid that they took in the draft in the first round. There are a few tight ends on the bench or on the waivers that are worth picking up in a pinch if you need them, just letting you know. Back to the lines. Here we go. So Buffalo is pick 1 or one of our picks. All right, with the Rams, they are 12-8 against the AFC under McVay. In 2021, the Rams were 4-1 against the AFC South plus the Ravens that year. Ironically, the one loss that they had was against the Tennessee Titans, who they are playing tomorrow. Here is the difference, though. Their defense is young, flying to the ball. If you watched last week's game, their defense was not lacking. And against Tennessee and Cam Ward, who is a rookie, they shut down basically Houston, which is a good offense and a third-year starter there in Houston, and they were able to confuse him enough. When the Titans were a number 1 seed in the AFC, they were 12-5, but this is not a Vrabel-led team. So that is why we are taking, and I'll tell you something else, a quick note and a shout-out to Colin Cowherd. This is actually his dog of the week is Tennessee. He's got his Fire 5 or his top 5 picks or whatever you want to call it. The Rams, he's going against the Rams. My feeling is this legit is that Brady was on during the week earlier on a podcast, and Brady said that he thought that Stafford was the best mental quarterback right now in the league over Mahomes, over Jackson. Now, not to say he's the best quarterback, but the best mental, meaning like Brady, not the most athletic, not the most mobile, not the strongest, fastest guy, but reading defenses, quick releases, ball out when it needs to be. Stafford might be the best. They do have offensive line issues, which even more with McVay, they will have some answers to that problem in that Stafford stays upright. And again, they have Devontae Adams, Puka Nacua. They've got the running game going. They've got their defense being young and going to the ball. Their defense might be one of the top 5 defenses at the end of the year when all is said and done, if they keep playing the way they did and the way they look like they can at the last 4 or 5 games of last year and the first game of this year. So again, the Rams are 12-8 against the AFC under McVay, and in 2021 they were 4-1 against the AFC. So now I get it, that was a while ago, but historically and trends seem to a lot of times survive in the betting world. But think about it, if you want the coach, which coach would you bet on between the Tennessee coach and the Rams coach? And secondly, with Stafford being healthy and it's only week 2 and so forth. So for our second pick of the week, we are taking the Rams, and the Rams right now are a -5.5. I don't like laying that kinds of points. But that being said, There is so much belief in Tennessee because of what they did last week with Denver and how they hung in there and how Cam Ward looked good and everything else. I just don't think that they have, week one, it's only one game. I don't think they're going to be prepared for what McVay has for them. I think on offense, McVay has a lot of motion, a lot of confusing things for that defense. And when Tennessee is on offense, the Rams defense will be flying to the ball. All right, so that is the number 2 pick that we're going with. This one is not a pick. It's just a little bit of our information. San Fran, Purdy is now out for 3 to 5 weeks. San Fran was a 7.5 point favorite. Now they are closer to a 4.5 point favorite. Too much unknowns with Purdy out, with Kittle's out. I'd like to see more from the 49ers. I think that they truly, even all the pundits this week, they all agree. San Fran got really lucky when Seattle got the ball right down to the 14-yard line, and the quarterback for Seattle, the offensive lineman got pushed back by Bosa into his hand. He had a weird fumble, and of course San Fran recovered, and that was the end of the game. But a lot of people believe that there was a lot of time. It was first down or second down, and they were at the 14-yard line, and they had moved it down all the way down the field. Time was not an issue. They had timeouts, so I don't think that Darnold was going to do anything crazy, but the weird turnover costed them the game. A lot of people who bet San Fran even say they got lucky, and I get it, luck's a part of it. We didn't have Seattle, by the way. I'm just pointing out that's why we're not taking them this week. We'd like to see more from San Fran. As far as New Orleans, I think that New Orleans, along with Carolina, might be 2 of the worst 4 teams of the 32 this year. I've got to see way more from both teams to land on any kind of more educated guess or bet on those guys. All right, Chicago at Detroit. Again, not one of our picks. Not one of our picks on this one, but I will say that usually when a good team gets handled the way Detroit did, and they have a culture guy in their coach, and I think that they'll have focused practices this week, and I think Detroit at home -5.5, because a lot of people say, well, it's a must-win game for both sides. Chicago lost Monday horribly at the end there. Detroit got manhandled. But like San Fran, I'd like to see a bit more from Detroit. They do have a lot of weapons, but they're facing their old offensive coordinator, Ben Johnson. And I'll say this, the Lions have won 5 of the last 6, with 3 not covering 5.5. 3 of the 5 out of 6 that they did win recent, they would not have covered 5.5. So there's very, very interesting 3-part article by Tyler Dunn. It's called The House of Dysfunction. If you want to learn more about Chicago, go read that 3-part article. It's very insightful. There seems to be a toxic culture thing with Chicago as the organization and Caleb Williams. A very interesting read. But again, why, when we put in our time over the week of all the research we're doing, that article really, it kind of made me want to stay away from Chicago and Detroit altogether. If you put a gun to my head, I would say I would take Detroit at home -5.5, but I'm not touching that game. Seattle at Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh is -2.5 as we're speaking right now. My research shows that all the money, all the tickets, all the bets are only going to Pittsburgh at home. So, that being said, make of it what you will, but it's like both the smart money and the street money, or the common guy. Seattle lost on a fluke turnover at home, as I said. Steelers were in a shootout with the Jets. So I'd like to see 3 or even 3.5 if I were to take Seattle. A lot of money, like I said, is coming in only on Pittsburgh. If you can ascertain that Pitt's defense, so let me back up. 3 main starters are not playing. if you go and look at the inactives for the Pittsburgh defense this week, it's literally like a walking wounded list of. When I was reading it, I stopped reading after like a dozen guys. There was like over 12 people. I think it was upwards of 20 people, defensive personnel that are going to be out or on the PUP list this week. The main guys, Deshaun Elliott, defensive tackle Derek Harmon, and especially cornerback Joey Porter are out. So if you can get 3.5 and you love Seattle or you like a dog, if you can get 3.5, I say it's an interesting. My other bet, so far we've got the Bills minus 5.5, we've got the Rams minus 5.5. My third bet this week is actually Seattle Pittsburgh under 40.5. If you watched Seattle's defense last week, if you watched Pittsburgh's, and no, Pittsburgh at home and their defense, TJ Watt, Jalen Ramsey, all of that, it's just, we think it's going to be a low-scoring game. Not to mention, Pittsburgh did not establish the run last week, which we know they want to do, and Seattle is going to establish the run. We know that that's what they want to do. So with both sides wanting to run and control the ball, and both sides having really quick reactive defenses, I think that 40.5 is a good, solid bet. I believe that the outcome is probably going to be something like 23-17 at worst, but more along the lines of 20-17, 17-14. It's going to be a 3-point game at the end and under. Of course, at 40, you're going to get right up to it. You're going to squeeze it out. But if you can tease it or if you can parlay it or whatever, but 40.5, we like the under. For our next pick, and we like, this is kind of our favorite pick of the week. New York at Dallas. Dallas is minus 3.5. The last 4 Cowboys games easily covered at 27-20, 20-15, 49-17, and 40-0. Cowboys have won actually the last 15 of 16. That's beyond a trend. That is it's like taxes and the sun rising. But in any event, what we really like besides Dallas minus the points at home is also that if you're like on FanDuel or you are on DraftKings, if you can get, I believe the line is CeeDee Lamb over or under 6.5 receptions. We like CeeDee Lamb to go over the 6.5 receptions. He had 3 major drops last week. You could argue if he catches one of those 3, it's a different game. If he catches that third drop, you could argue Dallas wins that game and beats Philly in the home opener in Philly, which is, again, week 1, who knows what to expect. What I can tell you is Dallas was very buttoned up. Dallas managed to clock well. Dallas's calls were good. Once the defensive guy got thrown out of the game for spitting on Dak, they were able to run the ball. And so all in all, we just like Dallas at home, their home opener. This one, especially they know how close they got to winning against the Super Bowl champs, Philly. And this is a divisional game. But again, Dallas, the last 4, easily covers any one of those 4 games. Like I said, we went through it 27-20, 20-15, 49-17, 40-0. And they have won the last 15 of 16. We like Dallas as one of our picks this week. So let's go through it again. We've got the Bills, we've got the Rams, we've got the Cowboys, and we've got Seattle, Pittsburgh under. We're going to give you a total of 5 picks with one total. The total we already gave you, Seattle and Pittsburgh. We're going with 5 this week. We're feeling a little bit generous. Part of it's because we want to establish more of a floor, more of a baseline, more of a foundation. Secondly, we want you guys to see what we're made of. And third is because we're cutting it short on the news and everything else, and because I'm under the weather this week and we're getting right to it, we wanted to give you guys a little bit of extra and run this podcast out so that we can give you guys some time. If you're cutting the lawn, if you're listening to it, driving or whatever, it gives you guys a little bit of drive time listening. All right, next one we are not touching, but we're cautioning. New England at Miami. Miami is minus 1.5. with Vrabel as the head coach and the dysfunction we are hearing about in Miami, we actually, like New England, here's the caution or the problem. New England is 0-4 the last four at Miami, both straight up and against the spread. Tua is 4-0 against New England, and that's under Belichick. You can go as far back as in the Brady era. New England always has a hard time with Miami in this part of the year, the September, October part of the year. The humidity, the heat, the Florida weather is real, and players do get gassed. That's what scares us. A lot of people are actually taking New England, stating that if New England wants to make the playoffs, if they want to make any noise, if they want to kind of send a message to the league, and Vrabel's a culture guy, we don't deny that. New England needs to go in there and win this game. The problem is we don't know how Miami is going to respond to all the drama and all the dysfunction. With everything going on with Tyreek Hill, with trade rumors, with all of that. The guy, they had a players only meeting. The guy literally could come out jacked up, ready to roll, and kind of be on a run and go, catch 11 for 120 and 2 touchdowns, or he could be 2 for 30 and 0. We don't know. But I don't like the weather factor. I don't like the historical factor with New England in Miami. So I would caution you guys to stay away from that. The Florida weather is a real thing. Again, even under Belichick with Brady in Miami, it was a real thing. If I had to pick it, points, I'd lean Miami minus the 1.5. If, again, gun to my head, I wouldn't touch this game because my heart and my common sense tells me Vrabel's going to have the team ready to roll. But there's so many games on the board. Why force this one? Okay, next game, Browns at Baltimore. I have Baltimore minus 12.5 and a total of 44.5. The last four of the Ravens wins, there's 2 by 25-point blowouts, but 2 if the Browns win. And it's high, and it gets to be high scoring. The last 6 Browns would have covered 4 of the 6 at 12.5. This is a lot of points. 12.5, even with the great Lamar Jackson, and the way they lost in Baltimore. The way Baltimore, lost in Buffalo last week. You know that Harbaugh's going to have them poised and ready and focused and play to the whistle, to the zeros, and play 60 minutes of this game. But Cleveland is a division rival. You got to see a little bit of what their defense was about last week against the great Joe Burrow and Chase and all the weapons that they have, and Chase Brown and everybody. Baltimore, in the last 3 seasons, have only beat an AFC North team by 12.5 points 3 times, 2, of course, being by the Browns by 25. And 1 against the Steelers by 17. But again, all those games, and they basically had 3 that they would have covered by this spread. So again, I'm not saying take the Browns. I'm not saying take Cleveland. What I am saying is there's so many games on the board. There's better games to be had. Just go ahead and watch this game for your own entertainment. But if you had to bet it, again, I don't know which one. I guess I would take, gun to my head, I guess with Cleveland's defense, I guess I would take the 12.5, but again, we're not touching this game. Okay. The next game that we are taking is Arizona. Arizona played basically a really almost like a preseason game last week, right? So they struggled. They looked a little out of sync, but yet my point to it is, but they still covered. They went into New Orleans on the road, and they still covered. And whether it was this week's line at 6.5 or last week's line against New Orleans, either way, they would have covered with the final score being a win by 7. They looked a lot better than the score against a Panther team that showed offensively and defensively that they were they basically scored 10 against Jacksonville, but 7 of that came in garbage time. So really, it was more like 27-3 with the garbage time extra touchdown. We like Arizona. I don't really like putting my money in Kyler Murray's hands, but I love the tight end. I love the second year wide receiver. We love the running back. We love the scheme. Their defense is flying around and always plays tough. So Arizona -6.5, which is the biggest spread we're laying this week. We don't really like laying that much points. Now, if it goes to 7, I wouldn't touch it. I'd actually like to see 6, but the posted line right now, as we speak, is 6.5. I'd say, again, take Arizona minus the 6.5. So that is one of our picks. So again, we'll go through it. Bills -5.5. Rams -5.5. Cowboys minus now 5.5. And actually, let me double check this. I think Dallas, see here. Was Dallas still at 5.5? I wasn't sure. No, I'm sorry. Dallas is down to 3.5. Sorry. Dallas is down to 3.5. But it opened at 5.5. Sorry. So the Bills -5.5, the Rams -5.5, Dallas -3.5, Arizona -6.5, Seattle over and under with Pittsburgh under the 40.5. And our final game, Denver -1.5 versus Indy. Denver's offense had a very slow start week 1, but still was actually very, very solid. Their defense was suffocating. Their defense did not allow for hardly any ball movement, and Cam Ward had a rough start. But if at the end there, for the cover, the defense comes through as we needed them to. Bo Nix actually struggled a little bit. He looked out of sorts. It looked like a preseason week 1 game. That being said, that's how good and strong that team is. So we like Denver minus the 1.5. Indy, on the other hand, everybody is, I think, overestimating what they did last week to Miami, who is in disarray and has a lot of issues and dysfunction. And it was a Jim Irsay memorial. There was a lot of emotion. There was a lot of hype, a lot of player emotion in that stadium. And then once, you guys watch football long enough to know, once something gets rolling like that, it just gets out of control. So it was probably a lot worse than it should have been, but Miami could not do anything right. In Indianapolis, Jones looked like like an all-pro, not a Pro Bowler, but an all-pro. Again, would you believe that that's going to happen against the last year's #1 defense in Denver? We'd bet against it. Again, the most likely scenario to happen. This line actually was Denver opened at -2.5 and is now down to 1.5, showing that a lot of people believe in what happened with Indy last week with Miami, and they're taking Indianapolis again. So our 5 picks this week, are the Bills -5.5, the Rams -5.5, Cowboys -3.5, Arizona -6.5, and Denver minus the 1.5, and a 6 kind of a over or under play, which we don't do often, but like we said in week 1, that will throw you guys a boner once in a while. We like Seattle and Pittsburgh to play under the 40.5 because both sides have flying defenses, and in Pittsburgh, still with the weather being good, on a grass field, and both sides trying to establish the run, we like the score to be well under. All right, so again, 6 picks overall. We want to go 6-0, we hope, but the one that I will caution you is we put high regard in Colin Cowherd every week as we listen to everything he has to say all week long. And one of his Fab 5 or Fire 5 picks is actually Tennessee taking the 5.5 from the Rams. And we want to be transparent with you and give you all the information. And so that one, if there was kind of a questionable, iffy one or whatever, that would be the one, because Colin Cowherd knows his stuff. He's absolutely one of the smartest guys as a talking head when it comes to pro football. So we have a lot of respect and admire him a lot. We just disagree with him this week. And so you take it for what it is. Again, Bills, Rams, Cowboys, the Cardinals, and the Broncos, and the Seattle-Pittsburgh game under. All right, guys, we're going to wrap it up. Again, apologies. I am under the weather. I either have a bad flu or COVID. and we're gonna even cut just to it. Again, no news because of what happened this week. We know, you guys all know already the news with Charlie Kirk. We hope that things get better in this country. And again, our prayers and thoughts go out to him and his family, his friends, and all Americans who feel that loss. It's a major loss for our country. And as far as Pokemon and whatnot, we are going to stand by. We are going to be shifting gears. But starting next week, hopefully my son has everything up and running. And if we go 6-0 or 5-1, we will then have our subscriber plus up. But until then, we just, again, wanted to kind of set a foundation for you guys, and we wanted to give you guys a little bit of aloha and a little bit of extra. So we will have our how to contact us and everything up next week and everything. Consider this a second freebie, and enjoy. Have a good time Sunday. Enjoy your football. And hopefully we can take you to cash out at the win. Oh, one other quick thing too. So, for example, Seattle going 0-1 on a fluke, and like Green Bay starting out 2-0, right? So Green Bay already, their favoritism is going up. So it's a bet, with the exacta we talked about last week. But you want to find a team that is better than their 0-1 start, right? And I would say you get somebody like Green Bay from the NFC, and the AFC somebody like Kansas City that's now 0-1. If they do go 0-2 again, like Seattle, we love Seattle as a dark horse. But if you can get now Seattle to meet, say Cincinnati happens to lose this week, so they're 1-1, right? And now you've got Seattle, who, let's say, beat Pittsburgh and they're 1-1. Your odds of Seattle and Cincy meeting in the Super Bowl is going to be a lot higher than what I got it before the season started, when it was no wins, no losses, because now they both have a loss. Monitor the exactas if and when you can, and always look for a team that starts out 0-1, but is much better than their record or their fluke. Like Tennessee, they looked and played tough. Houston looked and played tough, although they're 0-1 against the Rams last week. Those are AFC teams that I still believe that will be in the hunt at the end of the year, and so you'll get a little bit even higher odds than you would have pre kickoff of week 1 with the exactas. So if you guys are in Vegas, take a look at that. Like I said, the exactas, and you know what I'm talking about. Other than that, we'll see you guys next week. We hope that we've got some good news for you guys. But other than that, like I always said, I will always close with, and especially this week with what's happened, be good to yourselves, be kind to each other. Mahalo, aloha, and peace out.